everybody. Thank you for joining our talk about cotton. Because cotton at the moment is a well-discussed fiber. And I think we have a lot to add on that discussion. Yes, because we do think that together we can make our industry, creating a better reputation for our industry. And we use cotton as our tool to do so. But therefore we need a paradigm shift. Not only a paradigm shift of the final consumer, but as well from the system itself and from you as resources. Normally, I show pictures of climate change, of pollution, etc. I don't do that now, because I show you only the solution. I show you the inspiration that it is really possible if we really want to do it. Our solution is regenerative agriculture, and that is what we do within the REDIS cotton system. And yes, REDIS stands for radically disruptive. I think in our system, how we work at the moment, we need to go new routes. And I'm happy to say that we are existing 1 year now. Last year at the Munich Fabric Fair, we presented our system brand. And within this year, we already are collaborating with 4 beautiful brands. They understand that it is possible to be different. It is possible to really create a system change with cotton as our tool. And that means we are beyond the talk, we run. And I hope you will run with us. What is that difference? Well, regenerative agriculture, how we see it, is everything to do with a holistic view on a food and fiber system. It's the total complex. It's not just the one cotton crop. It is the system, how it is working together. So we create many more values as just a beautiful cotton. It's really beyond the cotton. And the values goes into the inspiration and the activation of wanting to do the things right, not less bad. It is symbiotic relationships, not only symbiotic relationships between partners, people and brands, but of course as well in nature. That is what we can learn from nature. Put the right crops to each other and they enforce each other. So therefore we create a great natural impact, an increase of biodiversity, a real better soil health. And yes, we bring a financial return at spots where they need it the most. So the farmers are benefiting from this system so that they can invest in their own farming. And the social return is enormous because those families are really able then to nurture their own families, to invest in the soil, but also to invest in their children. And that's what I said, we really learn from the natural ecosystem and we have to nurture them. We learn from them and we do intercropping. We see what kind of crops are able to go together. We don't use any chemical fertilizers or toxic stuff because we teach the farmers to grow on their farm the ingredients they need to cook their own fertilizers and to cook their own pest and disease management soils. And yes, that is not possible by just one collection. We're not here to sell you cotton for your next winter collection. Then you should not come to us. But if you really want to help us together change a system, then you can be part of our REDIS system to build long-term relationships, to build trust with farmers, that they are able to really come from their conventional way of working to regenerative, towards organic, and they can invest in it. And yes, we have a proven impact already that the farmer families have an increase of family income of roughly 30%. And last but not least, very important, of course, it is about the data. What we do and what we do good should be measurable because we need to see that we make progress and it's the right progress, not just a one-dimensional one, but for the system. We co-design with our partners which measurements they feel are the most important for their branch. We co-create them together and we set a verification system on top of that. And of course, empowerment of the rural women. I was not aware of it, but 80% of the work on the farms in India are done by women. And we give them a voice. They need to be stronger. As soon as they held the family money, then we do know that they invested in the future and not use it for today. So therefore we say it is really an amazing opportunity. And we call that amazing opportunity the Magnificent 7 reddest returns. And I still cannot call them out of my head. It is able that you, with your brand and your own value chain, you can sequester carbon. You can be part of restoring soil health. Through your buying power, you can increase biodiversity. You do improve the livelihoods of the female farmers. And what is as well possible, you create a product with circularity in its DNA. We talk about circularity as if it is recycling. But if you recycle a bad resource, it's still bad for the planet. So if you think about circularity, start with a healthy and good resource. And yes, the last but not least is that symbiotic relationships. We feel, and yes, the last year proved it, as soon as we have partnerships based on values, as soon as we understand that we have to do things differently, then we can make it happen. And one of those examples is, for example, the company LAESSIG, a very high valuable children brand, who is going to present in 1 year time a completely circular, natural plant-dyed product, 100% regenerative, rain-fed cotton, stitched with cotton, and the labelings are cotton. And we have the product launch on the Kind und Jugend on 7 September. And that's why we say partnerships with the same values and shared risks, we are really going to enforce it against climate change. And at this moment, we do it together with Hugo Bedstraw++Madder, and Amber and Oker. So yes, we run. Do you run with us? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And we love later on all your questions. So make notes. Put all your questions. We have here the absolute expert, because I am only the talker. I am the connector to brands. Sanne is living in India, is living in between the farmers, and develops this all, is working there already, well, in depth 7 years, and living there already 4 years. She knows it all. So put your questions. We love it.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki.
Nikki beautifully presented what their company is all about. So now what we're going to do, we're going to have a little discussion, I guess. We've got some questions here that we compiled to kind of better understand what it is that they're bringing to the table. And if you do have a question while we are talking, feel free to put your hand up. We are happy to be interrupted. We're happy for you guys to join the conversation that way. So please don't feel free to hold your questions to the end. You're more than welcome to put your hand up, and we will straight away get you to ask us the question. So let's first start with this question, Nikki. Why should the fashion industry change their approach to agriculture? Because I know we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, about the farmers and so forth, and that the fashion industry really needs to look at that a little bit differently. So how do you think the fashion industry can change their approach to agriculture?
Well, it first comes to, do they want, are they willing to, do they want to take that responsibility? So it's always first a matter of talking with each other and showing what kind of impact they can create. Of course, brands at this moment are used to buying beautiful fabrics here on the fair. They don't know, or they don't know the farmers. They don't know how they could start working like that. But if they starting to know, really build relationships with those people, then they as well understand why they do that. And as soon as they understand that, then it is easier to transform their own supply chain. Because that it is. It is not offsetting anymore, but it's insetting. First, create a better own supply chain, and then sell more of a good product.
Because the industry is so used to, I guess, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil approach to textiles, how can you really imagine a brand finding out which farmers are creating the fabric? I mean, it's a process that really sounds good on paper, but is much more harder for brands to implement, to actually go ahead and do such things.
Yeah, I would like to say something about this. So I think, of course, it's happening over centuries that we become more and more detached to where it is that our products are coming from. It's not only for fibers, it's for food, everything around us. Where does it really come from? Who was involved in that? Which hands were part of that? Which communities? So we really want to break open that black box that was there for a really long time, serving a kind of purpose. We believe that purpose is no longer there anymore, and it's really time to open it up. And in this day and age, it's really possible, because you could even really connect, interact, visit, make it visible. We have the internet. We have so many different ways of really connecting the dots. And I believe it was always possible, but maybe we didn't really want it. So we are saying, please come, visit, be our guest, see how things are really happening, be part of our journey, our story, because it needs to be shared, right? We need to do it together.
Talking about your journey, could you explain to the audience your holistic approach?
So our approach indeed it's a journey. So if we talk about organic agriculture, probably all of us know that only the third year you reach organic certification. Only from that point onwards you could sell it as organic certified. What happens to the cotton grown in those 2 years before that time? Where does it go? Well, usually it's ending up on the conventional market, and there's not really a market for it. So what we are saying is, start a journey really with that first seed, with a conventional farmer who has to convert from conventional to regenerative. And it's an incredibly risky story for the farmer. Suddenly you cannot use fertilizers anymore, you cannot use pesticides anymore. It becomes really a challenging story, and we have to be there in all the steps of that journey. So what we say is, this doesn't happen overnight. This takes time. It takes a lot of different steps. It takes a lot of commitment. But there's a question there that we should take. It takes a lot of commitment from everybody. But that journey on itself is already, let's say, the return. I think we're very used to thinking about reaching a goal, but we want to celebrate the journey.
I agree with you. I think they want to run before they can walk.
Yeah, or already reach the destination before we have started packing for it. Or yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the question anyone's got?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kering. I'm representing the Blue Suit. We do denim. And we believe in using biologically grown cotton and also go for biodegradability. And this is the way we go at the moment. But what I see and also see at that fair or everywhere on fabric fairs, I feel like there's a split. There are people going into the direction biological, biodegradable, safe over there. And on the other side, going into recycling, GRS standard, recycled PET, and I feel like it's split in the system. But I don't know how you see this from your side, and I don't know what your view is on that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So if we look at cotton, indeed cotton is inherently biodegradable. If we treat it right, if we don't fill it with all kinds of toxics, it's inherently biodegradable. So you could say, and that's what we are saying, your journey of circularity also starts with that cotton seed. So what if we can choose the cotton varieties that are more suitable for recycling even? So in a research that we are doing currently, we're trying to find out what are the real parameters that are required for cotton recycling to be successful if you already think about cotton recycling before you sew it. And then you can think about, okay, what kind of different products in a cascade can you make of this cotton? Maybe first you make it a high-end, a woven, maybe later it becomes a knitted fabric, maybe it becomes a non-woven at the end, returning back to the biosphere eventually because it's being biodegradable, or going into a chemical recycling such as we heard before. But yeah, for us it's all part of the same system, but you will not find us blending it with recycled PET so easily. we just not do it. I think that's the great advantage of doing it yourself. You can just say that we won't do it. We won't mix it with elastane. We won't mix it with polyester, because at that point the journey stops, and that's not what we want to be part of.
I like to add there a little journey of myself. For 4 years, I was here representing recycled PET. But we're all learning, isn't it? And our biggest disadvantage is the successes we had in the past. We really need to leave them. We really need to see the whole world and the steps we have to take right now. So I really changed drastically, because I don't think fossil fuel is any option. Recycled, not recycled, whatever. It's not an option anymore. That's what we know now. And that's why I will put every step and every heart I have in a biological cycle. And the big question and the big inspiration for all designers to really get a totally interesting job, because it's not about designing a new t-shirt, it's about designing a new system, maybe already the after use or the second use, and bring that details into the first use. That's incredibly what kind of world we're going into.
Can you, for the audience, define what's the difference between regenerative cotton and organic cotton? Just so there's a bit of an understanding.
Yeah, I can explain a bit more about that. So how we approach it is that we take organic certification, organic standards, we take that as the baseline. And then on top of that, we add extra practices. So in a way, we make organic, which is already great on its own, we make it even greater. And for us, the way is to also go back to a lot of the indigenous practices that were already done by these farmers that we are working with. They were already knowing how to prepare the natural concoctions. They already had many different ways of how to combat pests and diseases. So in a way, the challenge is to bring that back. In part, the old knowledge together with, let's say, new knowledge, what we have in terms of remote sensing or GPS. And that combined very much with human-centric, very much animal as part of the system. For us, that makes up regenerative. And we would say that at this point, regenerative organic certification is the highest standard in that. And again, we say that's a journey. For that, you first need to be organic certified, then fair trade, then you start bronze level. So we are on that journey.
May I add?
Yes, go ahead.
What we ask our partners is to be partner from the very beginning. From the moment, it's nothing at all. It's just not bad treated soil out there. And together with the partner, we directly start regenerative. But we can only call it organic after 3 years. And this 3 years period, at this moment, the farmer needs to invest all by himself, needs to take the risk all by himself. And he's not able to do that. And that's what we ask brands. Be there from the very first step into this better farming together with the farmer. Help him, share the risk, and then we go from directly regenerative towards organic. And that's why it is also called in conversion. And in conversion is as good as organic, but it just did not have the 3 years period. So it's an all new terminology, a new way of thinking, but do know that cotton brings even more impact as the final organic, because there you reach the standard. The way to the standard, come away from that 1% organic of cotton in the world. It needs to grow, and we need all of you to let it grow.
We had a conversation a few weeks ago, Nikki, as I mentioned earlier, and you once stated in that conversation that regenerative agriculture goes beyond sustainability. Could you explain that?
I say bold things.
You say very interesting things. I even made note of it, because I think that's a really good point.
Have to be careful. Well, sustainability is for me, and that's the problem. It is for everybody else something else. But for me, it's like it was quality in the 80s. Everybody talked about it, and everybody thought they were delivering it. For me, regenerative is a shift in mind. It is together we have to work to a new future. And it's constantly reviving. It's constantly We learn every day, and we constantly have to be sensitive what way to choose. And that's not only sensitive on the knowledge and that we have to learn new things, but it's also very sensitive to the heart. What is the right thing to do? Because the right thing to do, what we thought in the past, brought us in the situation where we're now, in a poor global south, which has a lot of problems with climate change, and that is really a little bit because of us. So there we have to, that's the change, the difference between regenerative, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I would like to add to it, so I got really inspired by this quote, less bad isn't good enough. So I would say with sustainability, we might have still been satisfied with doing things less bad. But with regenerative, we really want to actively become more good and really look into ways of how to do that, how to really regenerate, revive. Yeah.
I think you make a strong point with the less bad. I think the problem is, because they're doing less bad, they think they can stop. There is no full stop at the end of less bad. You have to continue on your journey and try and improve year by year. I do have another question with regards to certifications, which is a hot topic. I've spoke about it just earlier on stage. Certifications are well sought after because they're kind of a proof of green, and that you're a green company. I mean, what are your thoughts on them?
Okay, let's be honest. Yeah, everybody who does anything with certification will have a really hard time defending certifications. So for me, myself, I studied organic agriculture, really learned a lot about the organic standards, was totally fan of certification until I went to India for the first time. And then I became involved in certification myself. I did cradle-to-cradle certification. The system is based, of course, on trying to prove something, but the whole industry has developed around it, which became so big and which became so expensive that if you look at what we are doing in India, the kind of money that goes into certification for maybe one visit per year, if at all they come, for 1 day or for 2 days, it just really doesn't make up to that promise it should have. And I know in reality, certification has that promise of, okay, we will verify, a third party will come. But if you really look into it, what is happening these days and how certification really works, I wouldn't say it's a good verification at all. We even would like to have participatory verification, that what if the farmers, community members, they themselves can become part of the verification system. What if we can find ways of reducing the costs, still having that really valid data points or data entry, that we can have a system around it. But most of all, certification is there because we have built those black boxes and we don't trust each other anymore. So what we are saying is just please come and visit us and see what is happening and come through our supply chain and visit farmers, because we really want that to be opened up again, because to see it with your own eyes and to be part of a trusted system, no certification can beat that. So we are doing it, but I would say it's more like an expensive, necessary evil that indeed people are asking for. But if I had the choice, I wouldn't do certification at all. I would still follow the same standards, but I would just not have it certified.
So basically you're saying it's a tick box. It's like tick, done. And a lot of people are satisfied having that certificate, but going no further than that.
If at all, it's checked. And I think in the reality of today, we even have to face the fact that sometimes it's not even checked. So then it's just missing all the reasons of existence, while costing a lot of money to a lot of supply chain partners who could have otherwise spent that money on, I don't know, doing some good stuff. So, yeah.
You want to add something, Nikki?
Yeah, you just saw me.
It's a hot topic.
Yeah. I am the radical part in our name, and I say certification, I say it hard, is bribery.
It's really sad, but yeah.
It went to bribery. The original idea is perfect. The rules are perfect. But the way the system is handling it is bribery. And we need that money to really put into the real thing of changing the system.
I like that. Certification is bribery. I think it's a very strong statement, but I can see where you're coming from with that. That I know that a lot of brands find it like, if I have this, I don't have to do that, because I can prove that I've got this. And the worst part of the certifications, as a consumer myself, is understanding what it even means. Like, if you have that, what does it mean? What does that mean about your product? Because I don't know. Is that, you know, so it's kind of a bit of like a Band-Aid over a problem that kind of needs to be ripped off at some point. Which brings me to EU legislations. You know, it promises to bring about an end to greenwashing, which is a bit of a swear word right now because everyone fears this boogie monster known as greenwashing. What are your thoughts on this?
I love you to answer.
Yeah, sure. And so, of course, well, anyway, personally, I feel it's good if slowly we are getting that push, be it from legislation, be it from wherever, that certain things are just not done anymore. But what we are saying, we should take the proactive role. We should indeed not wait for somebody to say you should not do it anymore. You should be doing business in a really different way, transparent, integer, trustworthy. In that situation, you don't even need that legislation anymore. It just, let's say, comes after you while you've already done all of your things.
But you know what I think the problem is that everyone has a different definition of being green, a different definition of sustainability. So I can turn to you and say, my products are sustainable. And then you can look at my products and be like, well, actually, they're not. But I'm like, yeah, but they are. So I feel like the legal side of it needs to come into play because we need a uniformed thought process of like, what is being sustainable? What does it mean to be green? I mean,
yeah, I think first of all, it would be what is the real transparent story behind it? So what is indeed going on, and can we look into that, and how did you make your calculations, or how did you do whatever you are claiming, just to start from there. And where are your factories, and how are you doing things, and why are you doing things? Just to open that up. I think that would be the first step already. Because to come to a let's say, consolidated definition about sustainability, it's like thinking about a new certification standard. It's also really challenging. But at the end of the day, you want to break things open and see what is happening behind the screens.
I just think it's important to stop self-regulation. You know, self-regulation. You know, we all kind of need to be on the same journey and understand. I mean, what do you think, Nikki?
Well, the way England is treating it at the moment, so that they really go against saying not truthful things, I think that's a good step. And that's why we call our telling about our stories, it's not a marketing department anymore. It is a mattering department. If they can tell a story what really matters, then they are able to sell more with that story. Because if you put money in that product, you do know that you do something good. If it's just a marketing story, to sell more without the right thing behind it, not the open, honest thing behind it, I think that is a marketing from season from last year. It's not the future anymore.
I mean, green marketing is the big business right now, you know, telling us this is green because of this and that. But I want to bring it back to how the farmers that you work with. Let's bring it back to that point, because you're a very people-focused company, I feel. How have you been improving and supporting the livelihood of the farmers that you work with?
Yeah, I can say something about it. So if you look at the communities we are working with, these are tribal farmers, Eastern Ghats, so this is South India. About 25 years ago, cotton was introduced there as a really promising crop. It would bring a lot of goods. It would bring farmers a lot of additional income, and at the end of the day, it brought them nothing. So a lot of the farmers that were introduced to cotton, let's say 20 or 25 years ago, are even worse off than they were 20 years ago. And of course, it's a huge challenge to, in a way, suggest a different system and not be seen as one of those who will be telling a story that is not true. So our journey is indeed a journey of many years working together directly with farmers, implementing, or let's say giving training, in a lot of cases just going back to how farmers used to farm before. before getting introduced to all the agrochemicals or all the artificial fertilizers or even the GMO seeds. In a way, it's just going back to how farmers were farming before. And because of that, there's an enormous cut in spending. So you have to imagine that the farmers we are working with, they were having up to 60% interest rates with the middlemen to be able to procure the seeds, the agrochemicals, the fertilizers, that were all part of this really expensive system with very little outputs. And in that way, we are breaking that system. So no interest anymore, no loans anymore, even no spending anymore on inputs. So there's a really drastic reduction of cost. And then at the same time, of course, there's a premium on top of the market price. So the additional income comes in two ways. That is just the financial part. If we look at diseases, for example, development of cancer in the communities, if we look at girl children going back to school again. So we can see in multiple ways how a system that, in all honesty, of course, was disrupted very badly 20 years ago, how that can, in a way, turn back to better or where it was before.
So how does that system cope with demand? Because I think the reason why a lot of not so good things were introduced into the system was to cope with the demand from consumers and from various industries. How does what you do cope with the demand? How do the farmers cope with the demand?
Yeah, so what we are seeing is in a multi-crop system, so not only cotton is grown, there are pulses growing, castor, marigolds, okra. All these crops have their own function, their own place in the system. So farmers are still growing cotton, but let's say the emphasis has become less on cotton. So of course cotton is still an important cash crop, but it's more about having that whole ecosystem around it. So we are seeing that actually yields are really good, outcomes are really good. But at the same time, of course, it's asking for a different mind shift. I don't think we are claiming that we would, let's say, reach higher yields than currently are being gotten with conventional cotton. It's also not our aim to do that. It's our aim to come up with a system that is holistic and that is multi-purpose and beyond cotton.
Can you explain why intercropping is important?
Yeah, of course. So the reason why intercropping is important is that, and it's just like looking at nature, cotton, of course, also works in a micro-ecosystem. So you could think about that acre of land. Let's say we have an acre of land. These are smallholder farmers. You can set up a really diverse system where pulses, they are able to fix nitrogen from the air because of their rhizobium that are in their roots. This is a natural fertilizer that can be taken from the atmosphere and put into the soil. So the cotton growing next to that crop already gets additional fertilizer that is just, in a way, a natural way. Then we have ladyfinger that can attract certain pests and diseases. Because of that, the cotton plant does not get attacked. So like that, there are all kinds of symbiotic relationships of these different crops growing together. And together they form a more resilient system that is better prepared for climate change, for pests and diseases, and so forth. Yeah.
It's a very interesting way of growing cotton. Never heard of it like that. Would you say organic is overvalued? This was a question we spoke of earlier.
What do you think? Is organic overvalued? I'm just asking because I love to hear more questions from you. But now San is answering.
Oh, I'm answering this one, okay. Yeah, so we just came from a discussion in the other room about organic. And so I'm still a big fan of organic. If you look at what is the idea behind organic, the thoughts behind organic, in our case, we're just adding some practices on top of it, but our basis is with organic. I'm definitely not in love with organic certification or how things got out of hand, how we don't know anymore if that organic t-shirt that we have, if it's really organic. So I'm definitely not a fan of that whole industry, also of fraud that we developed around it. But if you look at let's say the intention behind it, the search for a different system, ecosystem approach, yeah, I think it's still a great thing. But we definitely have to look at it in a bigger picture. Yeah, that's I think what I would like to say about it. Yeah.
I want to talk about blockchain technology. I love the idea of blockchain. I don't think it's going to be the savior of the industry, but I definitely think it's going to help in terms of brands being more transparent, especially throughout their supply chain. What are your thoughts on this technology?
Yeah, so in my opinion, with blockchain, it has great potential. But if I put rubbish in my blockchain, I will still have rubbish out of my blockchain. It will just be very nicely kept and safe, and nobody can tinker with it, but it will still be rubbish. So it's still the question, where do I get my data from? How valid is it? And especially if you go all the way to field level, like how was that data captured? How was that data captured? Who collected it? Where was it stored? Who was involved with it? Can we trust these people? Do they have an incentive to cheat us because we're not treating them well? So I think, yes, blockchain, great potential, but in a bigger approach of how we in the first place deal with our partners, supply chain partners, trustworthy relationships, long-time relationships. I think that is the real basis of solving, let's say, the current issues that we have.
See, I like blockchain because it's not trusting just one person's opinion that this is organic. There's various people that you have to, who also will be saying the same thing. I think the technology still has a ways to go.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of shows us that the industry can be open and be transparent, and I guess be forced in a way to be transparent.
Yeah, in combination with the physical tracer, I would say. So if we can have blockchain plus as well tagging the cotton with a physical tracer, so we just can keep on scanning it throughout the supply chain. I think more and more we will have technologies to support us, but nothing can beat that proper supply chain relationship, because even with the most beautiful technologies, if I want to, I can still cheat you, even with the best blockchain. So I think that human relation part of it, we should never forget about it when we dive into technologies.
I mean, I agree. I think innovation in general is a tool. It's
exactly.
It's totally not the answer, but it is a tool that you can use to get the answer that you need. Oh, there's a question.
Hi, I'm Nora. Yeah, exactly. You were just answering a little bit what I wanted to mention, because I'm really fed up with all these years of talking about and then saying, oh, we are developing this technology, this tool. We have tools enough, and there are more to come, and they are beautiful, and they have lots of potential. But what is our potential, our human potential? And are we able to do this metamorphosis for a better world? So this is the only thing for really protecting our planet and keep it as our living base. So, and therefore, please stop talking about this technology. It's us. After 10 years or more, we are talking about technology. It's us about whom we have to talk.
See, I think technology is key, and I'll tell you why. It's a tool. That's how I always view technology. The way an artist will have a pencil. They take that pencil and they use it to achieve something. And that's how technology should be seen in general. And most of this innovation that everyone's always talking about, it's still in the works. It's giving people an idea of what it can be like in the future. But the problem is a lot of people are scared of adopting new innovation. They don't see anything wrong with their business models or changing their business models. And it's that convincing part. I don't know if you find that convincing people to change is the hardest part.
It's such a disrupted supply chain. So if you indeed look at a lot of these supply chain partners, they will not know each other. They will not know where does the cotton go after I've done ginning, who is the next partner. So in that really fragmented supply chain, I think, of course, we're trying to look for tools how to get a grip on that. I definitely agree with that, but at the same time, like how can we get those supply chains less fragmented and indeed build on long-term relationships like they were before, and bring back that human element, and then probably combined, they will make a really strong team.
I mean, I agree. I think the human element is very difficult because I think a lot of businesses are afraid of showcasing what they do, sharing their secrets. You know, it's a very secretive business, you know, and especially in fashion, from my perspective.
Yeah, I don't know if it's secretive, but it's also something that we, in all honesty, are struggling with ourselves, is that, of course, nobody believes the story of polished greenwashing anymore, but we also don't know how to tell the real story anymore. So the real transparency, like how do we bring across what is really happening on the field, which is not only a rosy story, which has many ups and downs, which we would love to share, and it's also what we share with partners. How do we do that in the best way possible, that we don't frighten our partners, so to say, but you really bring in that transparency, and that transparency is not a beautiful story. It has, of course, many different faces. But I have the feeling we just don't know anymore how to tell a different than perfect story. So we keep on having those, greenwashed, beautiful, polished stories, while all of us know that in reality it doesn't look like that. But how can we tell that different story? I would really love to. I mean,
it causes
a problem. With that.
It causes a problem because the trust issue becomes a problem. Let's say you know a company that you love, and then they tell you how great they are, and then you find out they're not so great, and then where does that leave the company?
Yeah, but I would say I'm more trustworthy if I say I have all these issues, and I don't know how to solve all of them, but they're here, and we're working on it, and we're trying. But yeah, it's something that we haven't solved at all yet. Also a journey.
As an example, last year we made this beautiful circular product, but unfortunately the farms where the cotton was grown received 3 cyclones. And with 3 cyclones you have another harvest. So what do? Do we keep up shiny weather for the customer, or do we tell him and show him pictures and show him what happened with the farmers and how we cope with it? And yes, of course, try to get as much as harvest for him as possible, but it was not the 100%. And take him on this journey and being with him all the time, showing the farmers, now it's a limited edition. Because yes, the final consumer goes with that story as well. And next time it's more.
I like that, limited edition. Yeah. It's a great way of solving a problem. But I mean, talking about what you just mentioned with regards to the consumer and honesty, and also that lady with technology and so forth, I do think that there's a lot of conversation happening, but not a lot of doing. A lot of companies are flirting with the idea, but refuse to commit. Would you say this is something that you have found yourself?
How to say this properly? It takes some time. Fortunately, there are a lot of people in the companies who are aware it has to change. So that's why I introduce as well the terminology red as rebels. We need not only the bosses to decide, we need as well the people working in the companies, and together from both sides, surely we going to another direction, to another mindset. And we do see, fortunately we met 4 of them already this year, that they're able to take big steps. And yes, also on this fair we have encountered again a few where we feel, genuine, we want to make that step. But it's not an easy step, because it is a different supply chain. It is a different way of working within the companies. And last year we really encountered some of those problems, because it's not just, for example, one invoice for a product. No, 1 year in front, you are going to make a contribution. And that contribution needs to be paid by some department. But who? Who is responsible for that? There's no normal invoice. Who's going to do it? So it's really step by step we encounter questions. And yes, in the company itself, we need those red as rebels who do not work according to the book, according to the way they did the last 40 years. No, we have to invent a new way, a new system.
I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think we need to concentrate not just on the consumer, but on the decision makers. Not just on the decision makers, also the middle managers. You know, not just in the middle managers, but the farmers. Like, everyone needs to be part of this conversation. And also, we got to reach a point where we stop trying to convince people, because if you don't, we cannot convince you. You can continue doing business as you do. What are your thoughts when it comes to changing the business model? Do you think it's now time for businesses to change and adopt a different one? And what is your business model?
Well, I think we have a genius business model. Because what we like to challenge a little bit is the enormous amount of marketing budget to sell more of the not yet good product, and the CSR money, which is beautiful money, but it is offsetting. It's buying trees in the Amazon. And I don't want to diminish it, but let's clear your own path first. And therefore, we offer an opportunity to be part of the system and to be in our subscription model. And that means it is a 3-year long relationship in which each year you're going to pay an acre impact fee of the amount of acres you're connected to. And that acre impact fee you're going to pay at the moment that we are buying the seeds to sow the cotton for you. So you are investing in those seeds already, which is a beautiful story. And that is the money you take from your marketing or your CSR budget. It has nothing to do with the product. It's your conscious money. And then later, as soon as we have the harvest, then we work with your product development departments and see what kind of product we're going to make out of it. Will it be a yarn? Will it be a fabric? Will it be a product? And at the moment we establish what we want to create together, let's say, for example, the T-shirt. Let me say in the time schedule, in November we know the harvest, so we know roughly how many T-shirts we can produce for you. And then at that moment, you pay 70% of those T-shirts already. Why? Because there are no middlemen, there are no stock positions, there are no bankings in between. We're doing it together. And that's why, yes, we borrow the money from you to get your supply chain going. And at the final stage, as we supply the T-shirts, which will be then in April, May, roughly, then you pay the last 30%.
Yeah, so indeed we really try to come up with a model that is going along with the farm season, with the cotton season, and really cater to also the needs of all the different supply chain partners in the supply chain without having all that risk, which is normally on their shoulders being placed there, but in a combined shared risk together with the brand, the partner. So really a really different approach than what they normally used to. And what we're seeing is, not everybody will appreciate that. So it's a filtering of the right partners for us.
I like that approach because I think that when COVID happened, a lot of manufacturers ended up footing the bill for big brands like ASOS and so forth who didn't pay. So you're right. I mean, the idea of taking 70%, it just makes a lot of sense to me. Because then they're committed to the product. Because I feel like a lot of companies have had a lot of power before. Now it's time for these farmers to take the power back, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for the full supply chain. The only way of doing it is indeed to share that risk properly across. Yeah.
You've worked with a few brands that you mentioned earlier, Nikki. Could you tell us a little bit about how that's going and how you kind of foresee that continuing in the future?
I just put up her because that is one farmer, and we are going to show you a little movie afterwards so that you really are going to know her already. That's first step. How we work with the companies. It's a, how do you call this? Roller coaster? It is imperative. It is fantastic if you find the right soul in that company. Because the people who are willing to do that in that company needs a lot of positive energy. Because it's not going as it was going before. You need to convince your other departments. You need to convince to overstep some ticking the boxes, because we don't tick the boxes. We're doing the right thing. And doing the right thing is not easier as ticking a box. So there we feel we need to do some extra inspirational sessions. But at the moment we are able to do it, and we're happily invited by some companies to really work with the whole team and to really get our whole message across. Then you see the vibe, and then they make it happen.
And what does the future of Radis look like?
Well, that question I got before this day. That was nice. Our aim, and that's our dedicated aim, and that's a future which is far, far away, is that nobody of us is talking about a negative footprint or how do we deal with our negative footprint. No, our future is that everybody knows how to create its own positive handprint. What can you yourself actively do to make this world a better place? It's not about the negative footprint. That's already behind us. We have to look at how we can solve it. It is that positive handprint. And as soon as we have that message in everybody's head, then
well, that's the world I want to live in, Nikki. I'll let you play the video and take any more questions at the end if there's any.